Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Juneau Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. No matter your age, no matter your age, no matter your strengths, no matter your beliefs or lack of beliefs, no matter who you love or who you live with, congregation founders or first-time visitors, we welcome you here to this community. The mission of the Juneau Unitarian Universalist Fellowship is to be a spiritual home for those people who are all people who are engaged in a search for truth and meaning. We are glad you are here. Opening words today, just a little caveat. This beginning of the month, and this new month is called the Gift of Transformation, and it's also the month of Easter. And Easter is the very last day of the month. And usually when I do Chalice Choice, I go and find recorded sermons from the week before that other churches did on the same theme, but that's not going to be the case for this first Sunday. So I decided that since we're not doing an Easter service, because we're having potluck brunch on Easter, I'll just do a little Easter service today. I'm not that qualified, but what I found was really compelling, thoughtful, and hopefully it'll be good. So we come together on this day that many observe as Easter. The biblical scholar Marcus Borg said, paradoxically, Easter never happened. Easter always happens. May that be true for us today. So come into this space, whether you're a Christian or pagan, atheist or agnostic, come into the space where we will celebrate together the ways the season of spring and Easter reminds us that wholeness can bloom from brokenness. Bring your brokenness this morning. Know that it will be held in love. Let us celebrate. Our chalice lighting today, Sushma, would you mind lighting while I read this? You came last, so that means you get to do it. Just joking. Okay, welcome to this place where certainty transforms to questions. This place that takes what is and imagines what can be. Welcome to this space where what was fixed begins to shift, where rigidity embraces unfolding. As we join in the dance of transformation, welcome to this moment of change, where together we transfigure and transcend together. Okay, we're going to open with a song today, number 298 in the Gray Book, Awake Now, My Senses. So hopefully the song will come through. Welcome to sing along if you have one of these books at home. If you don't have one, you're welcome to take one home or buy one from us. Okay. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering will fill white sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now, my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now, my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care. Thank you. This is a meditation by Reverend Emily Wright Magoon. Spirit that goes by many names and is beyond naming, be with us this morning with all that we carry, joys and sorrows, hopes and doubts, accomplishments and failures. Be with us as we open our hearts to the joy of spring, of Easter, of hope. Spirit of life, help us to welcome the blooming of spring into our lives. Help us to welcome new beginnings, risks, and the unknown. Spirit of compassion, be with us in the brokenness that comes with everyday living. Help us to be gentle with each other and with ourselves. Help us to heal, to forgive, and to love more deeply. Spirit of memory, be with us as we hold dearly thoughts of those who are no longer with us. Help us to remember, to heal, to continue on. Spirit of wholeness, be with us as we are aware of the brokenness in our lives and in the world. We remember those places around the world suffering with violence. Help us to roll back the stones of fear, hatred, and indifference to welcome a world of peace. Spirit of community, be with us this Easter morning as we worship together in honor of stories of rebirth and in celebration of renewed life. Okay, I chose this sermon because of the three that were listed on the Soul Matters website. I like this one the best. And although, it was about Easter, and I thought, oh dear, it's not Easter. And well, it's the third, so we just leave off the one. So 31st, third. Okay. And also, this is by the same person I read the sermon from last time, Kaaren Anderson. So I guess she's my bud. There was some supporting documents that I brought that are referenced in this sermon. And if you're interested, you can look at these afterwards or come up and peruse as you want. Okay. The sermon starts with two readings from John Crossan. As the people of the earth increasingly divide into two mega classes called rich and poor, the first step toward the kingdom is deciding whose side God is on. And then we must ask ourselves, how radical must we be? A church that doesn't answer this question is dealing not in religion, but in hypocrisy. It's offering a transcendental Prozac, a little vacation each Sunday. Rather than giving coins to beggars, we should change the church Change the church so it makes the world a better place. That's what it's for. The second reading is an excerpt from a lecture by Reverend Dr. Robin Myers that he gave at Yale Divinity School. It's a brief in sorts of the role of the church in the world and how it has drifted. Whatever else may be said of the Jesus movement, it was born in opposition to the status quo. Now it largely sanctifies the status quo. Its founder constituted an unacceptable risk to the Roman Empire, and that resistance seemed so counterintuitive and subversive that even his mental health was questioned. When it comes to analyzing the decline of organized religion in the West, there is plenty of blame to go around. Ours is a culture of hyper-individualism and mindless spectacle. The spiritual life requires a moral imagination, and there is very little left to imagine. The imaging is all done for us now in a world saturated with screens, large and small. The mind's eye and its partner, the tender heart, are now blurred by neglect. So this is Karen's sermon called The Gods and Goddesses Hall of Fame. Every Easter, I feel like I need to go on a hunt, not for eggs, but for Jesus. Growing up mostly as a Unitarian Universalist, I had rejected Jesus and frankly his modern followers too. That is until I got to graduate school and had James Cone as my New Testament professor. Dr. Cone was considered one of the preeminent liberation theologians in the country. He deconstructed the text to expose the radical, rebellious, question the establishment, first century rabbi that showed the least of these how to earn some dignity, fight against the Roman Empire, and remind everyone that they are worth. They were of worth. Cone's classes made me a Jesus fan. However, as the years have gone by and I'm routinely bombarded by mainstream culture's Jesus talk, the Jesus from Dr. Cone's class, which I would argue is the real Jesus, became more and more blurry. It's as if so many other Jesuses keep getting put in between me and the real Jesus, and I just lose sight of him. That's been especially true when I lived in Florida last year. For instance, I think of how Jesus' life and message are turned into what's called the prosperity gospel by the likes of folks like that famous megachurch preacher, Joel Osteen. This prosperity gospel posits that if you are a true believer, have positive thoughts, and give your life over to God, well then, God will generously bless you. Mainly, this gospel says, by blessing you with a bigger bank account. And if that prosperity Jesus isn't on stage, what you get is an only slightly less offensive version of Jesus, who supposedly just wants us to toss the poor people spare change when we have it. But of these Jesuses, the prosperity Jesus and the charity Jesus dominate the stage, leaving no room at all for the Jesus I knew, who disrupted the establishment. I also think about how virtually all the so-called Christian posters, billboards, radio programs, bumper stickers, and even lawn signs in Florida are dominated by just one of Jesus' sayings in the Bible. I am the light, the way, and the truth. No one comes to the Father except through me. But that's it. I can't for the life of me find any proclamations of the Jesus I know who said, what you do to them, you do to me, or take care of the least of these. This dynamic of co-opting and replacing Jesus with a sterile, ubiquitous Jesus doesn't just apply to his message. It also happens to his cross. If you listen and watch closely, the dominant understanding of the cross is that of a key. It functions as a way to unlock the door to heaven and everlasting life. This is miles away from Dr. Cohn's understanding of the cross as a lens to see how our society scapegoats and sacrifices the marginalized. He argues that if we could better notice and recognize the crosses in our society, we'd be better at seeing who is being crucified by them. And finally, in addition to Jesus' message and Jesus' cross, it's also Jesus' resurrection that gets co-opted. The Bible literally has Jesus walk among his disciples weeks after the cross and empty tomb. It's a pretty clear message that what the resurrection signifies is the hope that Jesus and his ministry will arise and come back to life in the lives of his followers. But if you turn on your Christian radio, whether you are in Florida or not, this understanding of the resurrection will be completely drowned out by a story of Jesus coming back to life as a vengeful Rambo-type character who is waiting not for us to follow his ministry to the oppressed to be born in our lives, but instead waiting to come back and kick some butt and take some names. It's a strangely violent and antithetical Jesus to the nonviolent resistor. So yes, I had a really hard time finding Jesus in Florida and frankly in most places all over the country. And so every year at Easter, I make it my ritual to try and find him again. Now, this probably won't surprise you. I do that in my own Kaaren sort of way. I go on a hunt with my favorite tools, storytelling and imagination. And this year, that imaginative story journey has taken me to the Gods and Goddesses of Hall of Fame. I'm hoping you'll be game to go on this little imaginative storyline with me in this service of embracing and owning the meaning of what this radical prophet has to say to us in our own time, with our own empire, with our own oppressed peoples. So here goes. When I reach the Gods and Goddesses Hall of Fame, I have to walk up this long spiral staircase. At the top of the stairs is a long hall. It's misty, and things are shrouded in dim light. Long shadows are cast around the rooms, and not a lot of action. There are some of the old greats. Thor and Zeus, for instance, are playing chess in the corner of a marbled parlor of sorts, and arguing over the game clocks that are in need of a new battery. Yet neither of them wants to get up and get a new one. So they occasionally zap it with some electricity of their own, and it peters along as they continue on with their moves. Walk a little further, and know I am approaching Eostra's lair, the goddess of fertility and rebirth. There are butterflies, gardenias, and lavender that spill from her inner sanctum. Grass starts sprouting out of marble floors, as if it were taking up residence on dirt. And when I reach her room, there is dappled sunlight and crabapple trees in bloom. The smell of jasmine fills the air. She is often tired and lethargic, as she's not believed in much anymore. She's reclining on a piece of driftwood, which is as long as a chaise lounge and covered in emerald green moss. Her gossamer silken gown is a little tattered from years of disuse, and her hair, though tangled and in need of a good trim, is littered with flowers and dragonflies. She is, as you might say, Eostra, E-O-S-T-R-A, the precursor of Jesus. As the goddess of fertility and birth, her role of resurrecting the dry, barren, and brittle earth back to life got taken over by a whole new religion that changed the emphasis of the rebirth of the earth to the rebirth of a beloved prophet who could guarantee the continuation of us mere mortals into some heaven in the sweet by and by. I pop my head into the room and ask if she's seen Jesus lately. She tells me that she's not sure, that not long ago there was a homeless guy wandering the halls singing "Don't Stop Believing" with a backup choir, but that could have also been Pan, she says to me. She tells me to try the corner room to the left. He might be there. But you know, as well as I do, Kaaren, she says, he morphs depending on who he needs to be in the moment. I know, I yell back and I thank her for the help. Some of her little friends follow me, rabbits and little eggs with legs, shuffle after me because someone apparently told them that Jesus just can't pull off Easter without them. So they tag along for the ride. When I get to the last room on the corner, there is a little sign that says on a piece of scrap wood that has the name burned into the wood, Jesus. As I open the door, there is a black woman on a hot pink couch with long acrylic nails and televisions all around her. There is a huge banner of Black Lives Matter that hangs above the TVs, and she's wearing a BLM t-shirt. CNN is on, and it's highlighting the Tennessee Republicans' dramatic expulsion of 2 Democrats who agitated for gun control in the state capitol after a mass killing. The commentator is saying that this is the latest move by Republican state leaders around the country to stifle dissent and expand their power base. This black woman is yelling at the TV saying, well, of course they expelled the 2 black representatives and left their white one in her position. I get the feeling she is often talking back to the TV in front of her. There are images of Cesar Chavez, Saul Alinsky, and AOC on banners around the room. There are flowers in big vases, and sunlight streams in on the couch, giving her a halo-type effect. The little bunnies and eggs that followed me from Eostra's lair jump up on the couch and wriggle their way under her pillows and settle in. I ask tentatively, I don't mean to bother you, but I'm looking for Jesus. Right here, she says, as her eyes still glued to the TV. I looked around the room again and even peeked under the pink sofa. Nada. So I asked, could you be a bit more specific? I'm looking, but I don't see him. I know he likes the disappearing game, like when he did that magic disappearing escape from the tomb thingy. So is he pulling one of those invisible shticks again? No, honey, she says. You don't have to look harder. You just need to look right here. And then she smiles a sly grin at me. That is then that I get it. She's him. There is no doubt. Jesus, the prophet of the ages, is right before me. I've been waiting for you. Thought you'd show up sometime soon, she said. I know this is the time of year you go hunting for me. And especially this past year, she said. I bet it's getting more than a little confusing down there of late. I sigh. It is. She points to the side table with a stack of books and periodicals and tells me to just push them on the floor and have a seat. I take a seat. So what's on your mind? Well, I say, I just need a reminder of all that you're about and did. And well, maybe what you need from us down there trying to figure out what your message was and how to sustain the greater message to the masses. Okay, well, to my congregation and to me, that's not really the masses, but you know what I mean. I do, she says. Okay, let's start with how you're portrayed down there. It's like they've stolen the real you and replaced it with a fluffy stuffed animal version of you that strips you of agency, meaning, and your edge. Your sayings like, turn the other cheek, are almost passive suggestions that make Christians cowardly and complicit in the face of injustice. Resist not evil has turned into almost counseling submission and a cowardly response to evil. Going the second mile has become a platitude, meaning nothing more than extend yourself. Rather than fostering structural change, such attitudes encourage collaboration with the oppressor, I think. Though that's all scholarship of Walter Wink, by the way. Though frankly, I've always thought of you. I have something about Walter Wink here, if you're interested. You seem co-opt, watered down, bland, and ineffectual. And the Jesus I remember from seminary was a rebel rouser, a nonviolent organizer who didn't fight back physically nor run away, but instead showed your followers how to push back the oppressors who were brutalizing and killing anyone who questioned the establishment. Ah, so true, she says. So help me out. about some things, please, I say. Remember how you said if someone takes your coat, give them your cloak also? I feel so far away from what you meant by this. Help me out. Can you explain again? I plead. You bet, she says, energized presently. My time, just as your time now, there was great disparity between the rich and the poor. The poor were hungry and in debt, and debt was prevalent and debilitating. Did you know the average American personal debt is $58,604 a person, and 77% of American households have at least some type of debt? I know, it's not good, I say. And 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Disparity between the rich and poor is getting larger and larger since the 70s. That's it, girlfriend, she says. So back to why do I say if they ask for your coat, give them your cloak too? It refers to someone being taken to court to pay an unpaid loan. Only the poorest of the poor were subject to such treatment. Jewish law said that if a creditor was after a repayment for a loan, they could take a person's long outer robe as collateral, but it had to be returned each evening so the poor man could have something to sleep with. At each turn in my ministry, I'm trying to give examples of assertive nonviolence to take back some dignity and control over an oppressive system. The poor, quite literally, have nothing but the clothes on their back. So I was trying to get them to use the clothes on their back as a means to use the system against itself. So I said, indebtedness was a plague in the first century Palestine. The debt, for the most part, was because the Romans taxed the wealthy heavily to fund their wars. So the rich do what they do now. They tried to find non-liquid investments to hide their wealth. And what better way to do that than through land? The only problem was that in my time, land was an ancestral investment. It moved from one generation to the next. So if I'm a land-owning peasant, I'm going to have to be pretty hard-pressed to give it up voluntarily. And I don't mean to be rhetorical, but what happens when you want to gain more land and you're the ones already with money, what do? You figure out what the people need to borrow money for to work their land. Then you put an exorbitant interest rate on their borrowing, for instance, from 25% to 250%. I kid you not about that rate. So people get farther into debt, lose their land, and yet are required to pay back that which they borrowed. All they have left are the clothes on their back. So when I say, if anyone would sue you, give them both your coat and cloak, what do you think would happen? I go through a mental run of considering this predicament. If I had two pieces of clothing and was told by this radical rebellious organizer what this meant, I realized it would mean, of course, that when asked for the outer cloak, giving both meant I am now naked, in a courtroom, handing over everything I've got. Well, I'd be naked, I say. That seems odd that you asked them to do that, Jesus. It's almost humiliating. On first blush, yes, says Jesus. Nakedness in Judaism was taboo, though here's the kicker. Shame didn't fall on the one who was naked, but on the one causing the other to be naked. So when I told my followers to hand it all over, it was the creditor who is shamed, and I've turned the tables on the whole scenario. In reality, the debtor had no hope of winning the case. The law was entirely in the creditor's favor. But the poor man was transcended. The poor man has transcended this attempt to humiliate him. He has risen above shame. At the same time, he has registered a stunning protest against the system that created his debt. He has said, in effect, you want my robe too? Well, then take it all. Now you've got all I have except my body. Is that what you'll take next? Imagine the debtor leaving court naked. His friends and neighbors ask him what happened. He explains they join his growing procession, which now resembles a victory parade. It's a form of what I think you call guerrilla theater. It is, I practically shout. I was trying over and over again to give dignity back to the least of these, lest we forget I was the least of these. I know, I say, it's brilliant, I say. Yes, she says, it's a form of sponsoring clowning. I have something about sponsoring clowning over here, which is, I guess, what this is talking about, turning it around. I guess it's very Jewish. There's a saying in the Talmud that says, if your neighbor calls you an ass, put a saddle on your back. That's funny, I say. It is, she says, and it also works. I think that we live in an empire and we forget what we do. That we do, I say. So we've got to fight against the oppressors all the time. I'm not sure what that should look like, but sometimes I have some ideas. Well, give me some of your ideas, Jesus says. Well, I read this story once about this woman who, during the Vietnam War, claimed 77 dependents on her U.S. income tax, all Vietnamese orphans. So she owed no tax. They were not legal dependents, of course, so they were disallowed. She insisted, however, that these children had been orphaned by indiscriminate U.S. bombing, and we are responsible for their lives. She forced the Internal Revenue Service to take her to court. That gave her a larger forum for making her case. She used the system against itself to unmask the moral indefensibility of what the system was doing. Of course, she lost the case, but she made her point. Jesus starts laughing. That is the bomb. That is brilliant. I know, I say. It sounds like something you would have done. I would have liked to do that. Yes, she said. And that, my dear friend, is what you need to think through. What would it take to awaken the establishment, to shake them out of oppressive, domineering ways, to imagine a world, a life where everyone is treated the same way, that no one is left behind? How do you transform the world to this end? So maybe your task is figuring out how you and your congregation can go about similar acts that make my voice and my message come alive. Okay, I'm on it, I'd say. All right, another thing to address, I forge on. I know I come up around Easter often because I get confused around Easter. This whole Easter thing isn't really about you being literally resurrected. But it seems to me that over the course of the last 2,000 years of Christian history, the cross that you died on has become the symbol of salvation that is detached from any reference to the ongoing suffering and oppression of human beings. I had a professor in seminary, a liberation theologian named James Cone, who said this: the cross has been transformed into a harmless, non-offensive ornament that Christians wear around their necks. Rather than reminding us of the cost of discipleship, it has become a form of cheap grace, an easy way to salvation that doesn't force us to confront the power of Jesus' message and mission. Yes, well, I was a big fan of James Cone, she says. Yes, me too. I loved his class. I never absorbed so much ever in one setting. But lately, I've really felt his words about turning the cross into something that's not it's not really hits home for me. And James Cone, as I remember him explaining, equated the lynching tree that murdered many innocent blacks as the equivalent of the cross of your time. In other words, as he said, Jesus didn't die a gentle death like Socrates with his cup of hemlock. Rather, he died like a lynched black victim or a common black criminal in torment on the tree of shame. He was a smart man, that Dr. Cone. He was, I say. It's made me think that in order to really get you, we've got to rethink that what the empire now does to us, and how we have many crosses to bear. And until we change the image of the cross from that which is sentimentalized to that which is real and arresting, I mean something that signifies the reality of the brutality that we put on the oppressed. We are never ever going to get your message. In fact, I found this Cuban artist, Eric Ravello, who did this series of pieces on the modern day crosses that children in particular have to bear. And this one in particular hit home. I have some pictures of his art here. Check this out, I say to Jesus as I hand over the picture. It's a little girl with the guy with the guns as her cross. So the guy with the gun is the oppressor, and the little girl is the oppressed. There's more in there. That one's really disturbing. Wow, smack on, I say. I've got to check that out. What is that artist's name again? Eric Ravello. And that series is called The Untouchables. Yes, so what is he getting at? It seems to me he's saying, notice how the state crucifies people, sacrifices people for its own needs. Kids are sacrificed for our love of guns. Future generations are sacrificed for our love of gas. People of color are sacrificed for our own privilege and comfort. Women are sacrificed to ensure that change toward a more egalitarian culture is stomped down, and white male privilege continues on. So there's another job because if you figure out what the right cross is, what in your time and place are you making others carry in the name of the empire or the establishment, then you can figure out what your role is to be on the side of the least of these. Got it? Task number 2. Awesome, I say finally. Finally, the resurrection thing, last thing we're going to talk about. Resurrection now gets tied up in personal belief and salvation rather than doing and being who you were in real life. You said to folks, love who I love, the least of these, and yet I have no idea how to get people back to what you were after. Well, perhaps there is something in there that is twofold. One is my basic message, the me of Dr. Cone, the me of the scripture, my resistant, rebellious self needs to be resurrected. Bring that message back. And the other part is when you put front and center the least of these, you will start resurrecting people's lives over and over again. You will do the work of transformation, which is a lifetime of work, of ministry, of commitment and justice. There is this Methodist minister who said it so well. Easter isn't a certificate, it's an assignment. Love that, I say. Resurrection is an assignment. Me too, she says. Now go in peace, girl. Get to it. Be a rebel rouser. Ruffle more than a few feathers. Resurrect the ones you love and those who need your love. Afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. Amen. I will, I say. I get up and give Jesus a big hug. She smiles at me and sends me out, turning up the volume on CNN again and starts talking to the TV. I walk down the hall, call out to Yostra and wish her a blessed day, past Thor and Zeus, and down the stairs as the air gets real again and less cloudy, and keep in my head the words of my teacher and guide, Ms. Jesus. Resurrection is not a certificate, but an assignment, one to be embraced every day, not just today. May that, my friends, be our calling and our charge to our ministry. May it be so. Amen. Okay, well, let's sing a song. Okay. 1028, please.
I don't know this one.
Can I have a book too?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, here we go.
Soul
Our closing reading today is by Reverend William Sinkford. Spirit of life and of love, dear God of all nations, there is so much work to do. We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history and find the courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. Amen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you, everybody. Let's sing our closing hymn. Is it cold in here, or is it just me?
It's cold.
I thought it. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share.